Well, welcome everyone. So glad to see everyone here. Tonight we're going to be showing Promised Land. It's a film about the Duwamish and the Chinook tribes and their struggle for federal recognition. And we're particularly lucky tonight because the two filmmakers are here, and we'll be able to hear briefly from one of them before we start the movie. And we also have Ken Workman here, who's a member of the Duwamish Tribal Council, and he'll be formally opening up the program in just a minute. Let's see, so I think, I also wanted to mention that this showing tonight is being co-sponsored by the Southwest Seattle Historical Society. Yay. Okay, so now Clay Eals, who's the Executive Director of the Southwest Seattle Historical Society, is going to introduce Ken Workman.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you all for coming tonight. We're honored to be co-sponsor of this event. There are seats up here if you want to tilt your neck up.
Two here.
Yes, seats over here too. Southwest Seattle Historical Society has been around 34 years, and we have a number of our board members and other volunteers in the crowd and amongst the crowd, and we do a lot of different things. But one of the things that's our hallmark is to partner with the Duwamish tribe, and we are very honored to do that. We're honored to have all of you here, but we are particularly honored to have the great-great-great-great-grandson of Chief Seattle with us. And he also is a member of our advisory council, very active with us. And would you please give a big, warm welcome to Ken Workman. And Ken, you're going to welcome us tonight, right?
Sure.
We might learn a few things in the next minute or so, right?
How long do I have? Hello, everybody, and welcome to the neighborhood. So, in our language, the Chutsi language that was spoken here before English and before Chinook and all that stuff, it would sound something like this: "Gwibihedakti Siyaya," which means "Gwig" means invite. So when I go "Gwibihedak," it means welcome everybody. Siyaya, my friend. So when I say Siyaya, it means lots of friends. It's kind of simple language once you figure out how it works. So Gwibihedak Siyaya, Disha Ogud, onto this land. Oh, by the way, I should probably introduce myself formally, because in the past, this is how it would work. That we had villages, little houses and places and burgs, all up and down Lake Washington, up and down the Duwamish River, and we weren't really up on top of the hill so much. We were always water people, because you can always get in a canoe, and the water was the highway. So it's very easy to get around. Just throw all your stuff in a canoe and paddle off to wherever your summer camp is. And then in the wintertime, you all come back together into this great big communal place just like this. And that's where you would get out of the cold and the rain, and this is where you would share stories and things like that. And so, Alturi Duhak, which means a long time ago, Adisha Ogud of the South, Okisida, my grandfather, Akoyekwa Siapsiat, Okisida Adisha Ogud, that my great-great-great-great-grandfather, he stood on this land. You've Ohod. Adisha Ogud of the Duwabs, and he would say, "Come, welcome my friends onto this land." And so it was only about 150 years ago that that happened. And so everything that you see around you now is brand new. And so I descend down from Chief Seattle on his second wife's side. So my house, my great-great-great-great-grandmother, Oyo, she grew up right down here at the Duwamish. It wasn't the head, but it's called Herring House. Gololotov is the name of the house. And so that would be great-great-great-great-grandmother Oyo, and the person that you know was Seattle. He originated from Old Man House, which is across the bay over there. That's at Suquamish, Port Madison. And so we descend in my family, we've always been a part of this neighborhood. And so when I say that's literally, I mean it, because we are back in the neighborhood. So, I would also like to say, Wapo, Thunderbird. So, uh-oh, sounds like Thunderbird is angry, hates him, Wapo. So we would just yell out in the past. And basically everything was quiet. And in this room right here, it's actually kind of quiet enough to where you can hear the words when we talk. Because a lot of our words have the sound of wind blowing. So when I would say something like, we need up. And when you hear me, when you, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when we say things like cuidida, when I say up, I'm saying that in English, and so you can hear the sound. The real pronunciation would be up, and it would be, and so it has to be quiet. And of course there weren't any airplanes and trains and cars and all that stuff, and there wasn't any ambient noise, and so all of the words that we would talk and we could hear each other speak, you would hear those words. So when I say esquidid, it would be difficult for our English ears to hear these things. Okay, we'll just go ahead and go back. So, Alturitoha means a long time ago. This would have from Ka from Salik. Salik Alturi Bak. At the Alturi. And that's a long time ago around this area and around Mother Earth. The people lived. They lived everywhere. Alturi. All place, Tudi, there. And so they were all around here. And then, of course, they then changed 150 years ago or so. And we were already in the decline as a tribe because of all the diseases that came across the mountains. And you probably heard about these, you know, the malaria, smallpox, all of those. So we were already in a declining state when all of the Denny family came. They showed up right over here on Alki. They actually landed around the point, probably over where Salties is now. And so there was a little spot right there. So you come around the point, and that's where the Denny's were first met. And then, of course, everything changed after that. The trees were logged, and Seattle then became this great industrialized city. And then 100 years ago, well, in 1916, the Duwamish River was channeled. So it went from this meandering thing into this port that you see today, this money maker that it is today. Well, gravity still works and the river still flows. It just doesn't happen to flow in this meandering state. And also, Tulalpa, Herring House, disappeared because all of that down there was just a food basket. And so for us, we say, oh yeah, we remember all that. And so for my family, we grew up right over here on 21st Avenue, just on top of the hill, from the old Cooper School. You guys remember the old Cooper School, what do they call that now, Youngstown?
Cultural Arts Center.
Cultural Arts Center. So that's the school that I went to. And so the Duwamish have been here for a long, long time, and we still continue to be here today. And so I would like to say welcome, my friends, onto this Labada Stab sing thing, movie. Yeah. And so by way of a formal introduction, that would be when you guys would come, and I originally started this conversation out with this, people would come in their canoes and they wouldn't know where they were. And so we would run out onto a shore and somebody out there would say, we would call them, stop, who are you? And they would holler back, I am so-and-so, I'm Snohomish, I'm, Tulalip, I'm something. And we would say, ja just då stida at the Duwamish. I am Workman at the Duwamish. Flaleo to see I adisha ogo. Come, my friends, come ashore. Adisha ogo to fought the Duwamish. And do means inside, and obj is people. And so when you hear Duwamish, or you hear the word mish, that means people. Suquamish, there are people. Snohomish, those are people. And around here, people have names by a location. So we are the people that are on the inside. So we went all the way up the Duwamish River, up the Black River, all the way up and down Lake Washington. And so it's with great honor and great gratitude that I want to say thank everybody for coming here today. Welcome, or thank you, my friends. You have good hida. And thank you and welcome to this land that we know as Seattle. Wooden.
So as I mentioned, the filmmakers are here tonight. They're a married filmmaking team. And Sarah Samudre Salcedo and her husband Vasant Salcedo are both here. But Sarah has come down with the flu and she's in the car, staying warm. And Vasant will need to go home with her soon. So they were going to stay after the movie and answer some questions. But we'd like you to meet Vasant, and he's going to just say a few words right now.
Thank you all so much for coming out and seeing this work that my wife and I put together. We really appreciate you coming out and showing support for the Duwamish, and you'll see also Meet the Chinook, who everyone that we interviewed, we've absolutely fallen in love with and consider family. And we feel like we're just extending ourselves to the tribe to present this film to you guys. And we're just really grateful for you to come out. Ultimately, it took us about 3.5 years. It's something people are always curious about to make. And we're officially on tour. So we're going to take this thing out to the country and hopefully share the Duwamish and the Chinook story, but also kind of hope to further the conversation on recognition and just sovereignty politics. And we see a lot going on with the pipeline, the DAPL pipeline. There's a lot going on in Canada and really all over the world concerning sovereignty issues. And so we're just hoping to kind of push the conversation forward a little bit. And you showing up today really helps that. So thank you very much for coming out. At the end, there's petitions in the back, and you'll be told about those, but there are also brochures about the Chinook story, who you're going to learn a lot about. Feel free to take those and learn a little bit more about the Chinook too, because they're in a very similar bind, and their story's different, but there's a lot of really cool parallels between the Duwamish and the Chinook, which you'll see in the film. If you want to know more or have interest in telling your friends about further showings. Yeah, there's great information up here, but there's also the website. promiselanddoc.com. We'll have a schedule of just upcoming shows where we're playing, what part of the country, and all that stuff. So, and we're very active on our Facebook page as well, which is just Promised Land. I believe there's a doc.
Promiseland.com?
Doc.
Oh, doc.
Yeah. But short for documentary. So with that, I thank you very much for coming out. Sorry we can't stick around. I'm going to get my sick wife home. But again, thank you for coming out.
But I just wanted to check if there are any other Native people here who would like to comment first or have a question.
My name is Celine Cloquet, and I'm the great-granddaughter of the chief of Canela, the Cowlitz Indian tribe. We had 2.5 million acres of land in southwest Washington, and in 1863 it was taken without title. And we filed our first lawsuit in 1910. We were always together as a tribe, passed around a hat, put coins in the hat to send delegates to Washington, D.C. to negotiate a fair land settlement. And in 1973, we had a resolution, and although we claimed 2.5 million acres, the federal government conceded, saying it's 1.9 million acres. So we settled that, and they gave us 90 cents an acre. My dad fought hard to get that in silver, but was not successful. So the settlement was about $2 million in 1973. And we were told we could not, we were told that this settlement would not give us any hunting or fishing rights, that we were waiving those, and that we could not buy land with this $2 million. And we signed the settlement. I was about as high at the time. I remember the meeting specifically, though. It was pretty heated because many people did want to sign this agreement. And money never came because we were not federally recognized. We were told that because we were not a federally recognized Indian, federal funds could be distributed to the tribe. So after all that negotiation, we landed in that situation. So we went through the branch of acknowledgement system, branch of research, and it took our tribe 27 years. And my cousin John Barnett was the chairman of the tribe from 1983 up until 2011, and basically walked us through that situation. It was a torture chamber. There would be 5 years that would go by where we wouldn't hear back from a letter that we submitted to them with information that they requested. So all my life growing up, this is what I knew. And in the year 2000, Gover and President Clinton worked and signed our tribe into recognition. However, we received an appeal, and it was by another Indian tribe, and that tribe is the Quinault Nation. They said that we Cowlitz were really a part of their tribe, and that wasn't the case. We went with the Chinooks and the Chehalis to that treaty in 1854, and we walked away as well. We weren't going to leave our buried. We were enemies with the Quinault. We would have killed each other, and that specific information was relayed in a transcript that is in BIA records now. So the Chehalis, the Chinook, and the Cowlitz went back home to the southwest Washington area. And we were promised a reservation in an area called Chalachi Prairie. And then the Indian Wars broke out on the east side, and then at that point there was no more treaties to be made. And so we were on our own. And so in 2000 we got federally recognized. There was an appeal filed, and then in 2001 we were reaffirmed. And in March of 2015, we were proclaimed to have a reservation. We have now 152 acres in an area called Richfield, Washington. And so we're just getting up and going, and my chairman, John Barnett, has always said, we have to help these other tribes to get recognition. We're not going to let you down. We've been there. We've walked those paths with you. And now that we have an economic engine called reservation, we're going to have the funds to be able to do that. And I personally am going to take what he's told me and carry on with what his thoughts were. He and Cecilia were very good friends. And we're just getting up and going now. And so you can count on us in any way we can help you. Thank you for your time.
Are there any other Native people who would like to speak? Well, why don't we then just have questions for Ken, and let's, keep them fairly short, since we're going to just go till about 9:45. We have about 20 minutes, and let's not have anyone ask another question, or more than one question, until everybody who's had a chance to ask one question has had a chance. So, anyone have a question?
I wanted to know if Brian Baird is still involved.
Brian Baird is at Antioch University down in Seattle. And so he's been at one of these premieres. We ran into him this past summer in downtown Seattle. Tony Johnson of the Chinook was there. Many Chinook were there. And many people from Seattle were there, as well as Mr. Baird.
Is he actively still engaged in and trying to help?
I'm not aware if he is or not.
Okay.
Ken, you have the support of the Denny family and the children of the ancestors from that original party. Are they continuing their petitioning alongside?
I haven't, Johnson, what is Mrs. Johnson's name? Yeah, this would be the descendants of the founders, an organization like this. Very supportive of the Duwamish and this struggle. I haven't received any news lately, but that doesn't mean they don't continue to support. It's just not, I'm just not aware of it, that's all. Question?
This is a question that relates to history. Two particular things strike me as potential precedent that can be helpful or not helpful, and I'm just wondering if you could help direct me for how to regard it. Specifically, first, the Warren-Magnuson Act has a provision in it that states that ships cannot dock at a port where there's a casino that's federally recognized tribe, if I understand what it says correctly. I'm guessing that might be one of the obstacles that I need to be aware of how to approach. And the second is, I remember growing up during the time of the Bolt decision, and my neighbors wanting to each hurt each other around fish and fishing rights, and with climate change and the restoring of salmon habitat. I don't know how to regard the Bolt decision in terms of how to protect and continue to support the treaty rights that were decided around fishing and access to fishing. So I personally choose not to eat salmon, so I can leave them for the heron and the native tribes that need those fish for the types of salmon that I know are historically important. And I think maybe my one action won't have as big an impact, but is there any way to keep salmon from being on the menu in chain restaurants, for example, as an idea that I heard from the Longview community, that maybe now's the time to bring up those discussions so that everyday people can also help in the efforts indirectly. I'm so sorry, it seems like it's two questions, but really it's how to regard the agreements that were in place now as we move forward with climate change, ultimately.
Well, with regard to ships docking at a port on a reservation, Chief Seattle, Grandpa, he signed away all of Seattle way back in the day, 55, Treaty of 55, February. And so, therefore, Seattle itself isn't a reservation. The Duwamish have their own private land because we're not federally recognized. And so, you know, every now and then we park our canoe in the driveway. That's as close as we can get. With regard to the salmon, when Judge Bolt made his decision, I think it was 74, and it finally was ratified somewhere around 79, something like that. He basically said that the Duwamish don't exist. They don't exist as a tribe that the United States government recognizes. It says there's plenty of Duwamish around, but they're not a tribe. And so all of our fishing rights were transferred to the Muckleshoot and the Suquamish. And so those are federally recognized tribes, and so therefore they get to fish in the normal and customary way as described in the treaties. But going back to Judge Bolt, as soon as he made that statement that the Duwamish don't exist, he effectively committed genocide on the Duwamish people. He said at that point, forevermore, there will never ever be another Duwamish child. Now, we can have children, that's no problem. There'll never ever be a Duwamish. And so that goes down with a bitter pill for me. And so even though we're still around and we still recognize ourselves as Duwamish, and we sit here and we have people fighting for us, the Judge Bolt decision that says that the Duwamish don't exist really, it's hurtful. It hurts a lot. So I don't know if that's going to help you with your fish and whether or not you eat salmon or not. We all know that the fishery population in the world is being depleted rapidly. And so I would just ask that everybody be aware of it and do whatever you can. Along those very same lines, here in Seattle, for thousands of years, I'm going along the lines of saving the trees in Seattle. Seattle is supposed to be a green city. You know, the skies are blue and the air is crisp. We still have trees. And fortunately, most of the topography of Seattle remains intact. And especially along the Duwamish River. Now, the river's changed when it was channeled. But the hills around it are still there. You've got Beacon Hill, you've got Puget Park, you've got Puget Creek. All of those are still there. And there's still trees growing on those. And so for all of these years that we've been living on that river, for thousands and thousands of years, when our people would pass, we would take them out in the woods, into these trees. And we'd bury them there, stuff them into a tree, they decay naturally, they go down into the ground. Our ancestors did. And so you become part of the earth. And so I was mentioning earlier that by virtue of the ancient ones, the ancient ones live in the trees. By virtue of that act, for all of these years, those trees then grow and they create oxygen that we breathe. And so we're breathing the very oxygen that are provided by my ancestors. And so when we're in the woods and there's some huckleberries or there's some raspberries or there's some other foods like that, I eat those foods. I go, oh, thank you, Grandma. Thank you, Grandma. And so if we know that, then we can better respect our environment and where we are. Just as the people in the sea, the people, that's the salmon, the fish, all the creatures, as long as we are aware of what we're doing and we try to help those people, then the world will be a better place. So that's what I would ask of you, is just here in Seattle, when you're walking around and you see a tree, you might just say, hey, thank you, Grandma.
Thank you.
That makes me think of a question. So has there been any effort to have some curriculum for elementary school on up in the Puget Sound area that would include history about these things that were brought up in the film and the things that you've told us?
I think it would be better, that question would be better posed to the filmmakers. But I understand that there are educational systems, facilities that are interested in this film, and that they've asked the filmmakers to create a syllabus or something along that line. Question?
Do you anticipate Standing Rock being sort of a turning point of the crowd uniting and all of the collective guilt of all the white people for 500 years of genocide?
Well, I can only speak for myself, and it does feel as if, yeah, it's a fulcrum. And for me personally, the oil and all of that stuff, and I think there's good ways of consuming oil. I just don't happen to think that burning it in an internal combustion engine is the best way to do that these days. You still need oil to lubricate parts and, build clothes and stuff like that. But what really disturbs me about Standing Rock is the disregard for the people that are in the ground. And so there were burial sites that were identified, and the pipeline was going right over the top of them, and the bulldozers going right over the top of them, which harkens back to what I've just said about the people in the ground and the trees. And so those people of Standing Rock, those are their ancestors, just like ours are right in here, right here. Those are their ancestors being bulldozed over with, for a pipeline. And I just personally don't happen to agree with that. So here in Seattle, same thing happened. There's people that are underneath the streets, given a chance. You said, the story goes, you have 3 days to get your people exhumed. And because 3 days weren't enough, the streets went right over the top of them. So those people don't drive on those streets today. The ancestors, the relatives, descendants of those people don't go there. So, question over here?
What struck me was the bureaucracy and of the federal government, and I was wondering if there's a way to go more local and be recognized on a city or county or state, or even just on like an individual level, if it were possible to just get hunting rights and fishing rights from just individual landholders somehow, to just somehow get around the whole bureaucracy by going person to person somehow, or on a smaller level.
Because we're not federally recognized, we can do only the same thing that you can do. That's all. We're just people. We're not Duwamish. We're not Indians. We don't have government-to-government relationships, and so that's on an individual level. And then when you go up, well, what about on a community level? That's kind of what we're doing right here. So there are communities, both outside the reservations and inside the reservations, that say yes, we recognize the Duwamish. On the other hand, on an official level, with regard to reservations, they don't recognize the Duwamish. So as members of different tribes, they recognize the struggle, our struggle. And some of them are supportive. When it comes to many of the leaders of, and I'm thinking specifically of the reservations that surround, some of the reservations that surround Seattle, they are opposing our recognition. And so while I can appreciate the logic of that, it still hurts. And so I would hope that when the Duwamish become recognized by the United States government, that we all become, all good friends, and we all work together, and that as a collective, that we can do much more than as an individual person, tribe, reservation group, or that stuff. So as was mentioned in the film, a single arrow by itself is easy to break. A collective of 500, much more difficult. So that would be my way.
Thank you. This is similar to Amanda's train of thought, and I know the tribe has tried to daylight Puget Creek, and if there were to be salmon restored there, would that resource be taken by the Muckleshoot or other recognized tribes, or would it have to be on private property, or are waters designated as federal property, I don't know. Would that be
If Puget Creek were daylighted and salmon were to begin migrating up that, the fishing rights would go to the recognized tribe. So we, the Duwamish, who are not recognized, wouldn't have any more access to those fish than, you know, anybody else in Seattle that's not a member of the tribe. Question?
Yeah, well, the first time I heard Chairman Alexei say to a group of Seattle residents, you have to give the land back. And I thought about that for quite a while, and I came up with an idea that if we were to, house owners and apartment owners were to deed our property back to the tribe, and now I see this would not benefit the Duwamish. I wanted to benefit the Duwamish here in West Seattle. We would pay a certain amount of money to rent our land from you. We would still own our homes, we'd still be responsible for our taxes, we'd still be responsible for upkeep, but the land would be owned by the native tribe, which is recognized. And I think we first, before anybody could even start on that idea, we first got to have you recognize, because we all recognize that this is Duwamish land. You know, when you think of it that way. We're living here by sufferance, really, in a sense. Mm-hmm. So I hope that, it won't happen in my lifetime, but I'm hoping that it will happen eventually. I'm hoping that you'll get recognition before I have to leave.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful idea. Thank you. Deeding the land back to the Duwamish. We would, what I understand, if I understand you correctly, we would simply be caretakers while.
Collectors of our, like I was thinking, just to make it easy for us, you know, $1 a year. We pay you $1 a year. That'd still be a lot of money. But we would still be able to hang pictures in our homes, and we still own the house. We just wouldn't own the land.
Yeah. So all of this stuff is brand new to us. That all this thing that happened in Seattle only happened 6 years ago now. And so 7, was that correct? 167 years?
66.
Okay, 66. And then, so for millennia, we've been running around just like all the other animals. You know, the cold didn't really bother us. It gets real cold in the winter, just like a bear, you sort of hunker down and, you know, and sleep. That's what our longhouses are all about. You get together in your longhouse. That's where you have your fires, you share stories and all that stuff. But as soon as it gets, you know, somewhere around 35 degrees, you're good to go. You know, 40 degrees, okay. So you start heading out. And that would be to all the places where you gather your food and all of that kind of thing. So for all of these thousands and thousands of years, this is how we've behaved. And it's only been in the last century and a half or so that we've had to learn how to read and write. The languages aren't a problem because there's many languages around here. So learning English or another language wouldn't be a problem. But it's the culture. What's a law? What do you mean owning something? You had these places where it was land. It was this, you're on Duwamish land, but you really didn't own it. And so that's come up in the United States Supreme Court. And I think it was in 1823 or somewhere around there, that Thomas, I think his name was, Justice Thomas, he declared in a case that there were two people arguing. One gentleman bought a large tract of land from the natives, and another guy said, no, that's my tract of land because I have a deed for that land. And the guy that bought it from the natives lost, because Thomas said, natives can't own land. They're only tenants on the land.
Wow.
And so therefore, when we look at all of this stuff around here and say, well, we don't own the land, we're simply tenants. Well, okay, it's worked for us for a long, long time. We had 92 of these houses, these long houses. So if you look at the room that we're in right in here, this would be a nominally sized house. You know, and you'd have maybe 3 families in this one. maybe 4. But that's how we survived for thousands of years. So it's only overnight that we've had to come up to speed and figure out what laws were, figure out what reading was, you know, programming computers, flying airplanes, all that stuff, you know, modern society. So this is all brand new to us. Question?
What did they do with, because there were towns like up and down this area of the Duwamish, did they just bulldoze them out? Because either I'm very blind, but I don't see any recognition. I know, like, even if you go down to another country like Mexico, obviously that wasn't just little towns, big cities. Mexico City was there when Cortez came there. Even in Peru, there's Cusco, still a good-sized city.
Yeah.
Nothing else. Where are the native towns that were here?
Well, the last longhouse, that was my great-great-grandmother. I want to say Eals. And this was Herring House, right over here, or T105 is, was right around that area. And so all the long houses around here got burned down. And so the last one would be my great-great-great-great-grandmother, who was the wife of Chief Seattle. That was his second wife. And so everything just got burned down. Your summer places aren't houses at all. They're just simply a bunch of mats woven together. You bend over some twigs and you've got maybe a 3-sided hut. You build a little fire in the front, you're fine. You know, there's some heat right there. But remember, for thousands and thousands of years, we're running around here just like all the animals. Just think of a deer. And you know, it rains, you get rained on. So what? You're just getting rained on. And so today we're kind of spoiled in this society. We get cold. And so apparently back in when logging first was introduced into this area here in Seattle, the natives, the Duwamish, were hired to go out and tend these log looms that we'd fall in the water, and it apparently didn't have any effect on us, being cold. And so once you get used to the environment, then you're fine with it. So to answer your question, there's no evidence of the towns, as you described, because they're all made of wood. They're made of perishable materials. If they didn't burn down, they rotted.
But that's horrible, they burned them.
Yeah.
Just the one more justice.
So we're at a quarter till.
Thank you.
Is there?
Thank you so much. I have one last question. What would you most like us to do to be helpful to the tribe?
To be helpful, well, the tribe, if you want to be helpful financially, just go down to the longhouse, watch movies, you know, buy something every now and then, you know, put some money in a donation jar. That always helps. That's what keeps the doors open. And so that's the only place that we have, and that's part of this. That's Seattle. And so when we say Seattle, that's a family name. That's my family name. So you're literally helping me. I appreciate that. But that's what you can do. As far as helping the Duwamish, by virtue of you coming here and watching this filming and having this knowledge, and then having the further knowledge that we're still here, we're in the trees. So Yayalam is the ancient ones. Sali means life, live. And so Swatuptit is earth, Swatuptit is Mother Earth. Swatuptit are the forests, are the trees. So Te Yayalam Sali Ata Swatuptit, the ancient ones live in the trees. And so by virtue of you knowing that, and walking around Seattle and having that thought, then you'll extend the knowledge of the Duwamish, you'll maintain the memory. And so that's a big help. So it's not like you have to go out there and really do anything other than when you're working in the woods. Just appreciate, you see that berry growing and you eat that huckleberry, you say, oh, that's so good. Thank you, Grandma. So.
I have just a couple things just to add just from tonight, that just remind people that any donations we collect tonight beyond our expenses will go to the tribe, and so there'll be a can out there on the table as you leave if you haven't had a chance to donate, and then if you'd like to. And then also, I believe we have some extra copies of that petition that was circulated. If you'd like to take them and share them with your friends, feel free to do so.
And return them to you?
I think there's an address. There must be something on
Okay.
it. You can return them to the tribe, the longhouse. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's wonderful having you. And as good leaders of the CIA. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you.